So for our session here, we would like to welcome to Helping Tomorrow's Global Leader with Randy Pilon. So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Sherry, and I am in the BBA Human Resources program. So first, just a couple housekeeping points about how this session will work, because it's probably different if you've been to other leadership conferences. This one I think is going to be really great. So this session is meant to be an organic conversation between each of you attending here and Randy, who is our speaker for today. I will be the moderator for the session, and I'll start us off with a couple questions, but I hope that you will be able to lead the conversation here. So this session is much smaller, more intimate, and interactive. With that, I encourage each of you to be able to turn on your mic, turn on your camera. You can request doing that. If you look at the top right hand of like the window screen, there is a button that says join audio video. You can click on that, and the moderator for the session will be able to then approve you. There is a limit, though, to how many people can come on screen at one time, but we will rotate through all the attendees, through everyone requesting to join. That way we can make sure everyone has an opportunity to come on camera and interact with Randy. Okay. If you would rather just sit back, listen to everything being shared, you can still use the chat that we have available on the right-hand side. You can always type in your questions and comments in there as well. And I will be moderating the chat. So if there are any questions, I will make sure I can address them and we can ask Randy for them. Okay, so hopefully we all understand how we're going to go about this session. So let's get started. We're going to get on to our great speaker today. We've got Randy Pilon. So Randy is a proud business graduate and the founder and CEO of Virox Technologies, Inc., global leader in manufacturing revolutionary and environmentally friendly disinfectants. At the outset of the pandemic, Virox boosted production of its patented accelerated hydrogen peroxide because the disinfectant quickly kills the coronavirus and is safe to use without protective equipment. Randy is also a firm believer in the importance of higher education. In 2014, he donated $2.5 million to Sheridan, and the business faculty was renamed the Pilon School of Business in his honor. It is a pleasure to welcome him today. Hello, Randy. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Really great. Of course, we're looking forward to having you here and having this opportunity to connect with students. If you would like to kind of get started, just take a couple of minutes here, introduce yourself, and briefly tell us about what you do.
Well, I mean, what do? I manage 6 little grandkids. I call them dependents, but they're really descendants. They're so I've got 3 kids, and we spend a lot of time up north, and we really enjoy being, a big extended family. So that's what I love to do. But what I do for a living is I run this company called Virox, which is an infection prevention company, chemical engineering, revolutionary disinfectants for sustainable, safe use all around the world. And we've got about 140 employees here. We've got a 70,000 square foot building here and one across the street that's about 20,000 feet that houses our commercial team. And this is more the manufacturing side where I reside. And you can see, I was just telling you both about my American Pickers flea market here, where I've got all kinds of, this memorabilia and things that I like to collect. It's a little more out of control up at the cottage with signs and gas pumps and crazy stuff. So just having some fun with that. But so my initial career was with Bausch & Lomb. It was a global leader in the eye care space. They invented the contact lens. They invented the Ray-Ban sunglass. They invented a lot of different things, and it's a multi-billion-dollar organization. And I started there when I was quite young and rose to be their youngest vice president at the time at 32 years old. And at 36, I decided that I'd turn down 3 different transfers around the world. From Australia, UK, and then finally emerging markets, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And because we wanted to live our life here in Canada. And so I thought I better do something on my own. And so I created a business model for this disinfection company where there was a formulator that had developed a new green disinfectant. And I was asked by the Royal Bank actually to partner with him and see if I could put a business case to his invention. And that's how it all started, almost 24 years ago now.
Wow.
So yeah, 36, I just turned 60. So time flies.
Wow.
And that's in a nutshell what we do. So we've got about 60 people on the manufacturing side. The rest are in different disciplines from laboratory sciences. So we have PhDs in chemical engineering right through to, on the finance accounting side, CPAs, CGAs. We've got a number of people from Sheridan, mostly on the soft skills side, in marketing and social media and HR, areas like that, and business development. So, and one in finance too. Yeah, from your accounting program. So, yes, I like to support the school for sure. I got Brock, just to give you a bit of history there. I got brought back into the Sheridan fold, and I think it's going to be 2004. I was on Report on Business Television, and one of my old professors saw me. It was during SARS, the original mini pandemic, which was not a pandemic, outbreak. Let's call it an outbreak. And we were on the we were epidemic. We were on the I was on the front cover of all the major newspapers because of our technology. And Brian Lyons, his name was. He was an economics professor back then. He recognized me and he brought the dean of the business school to see me. And we had a great chat and kept in touch. And next thing I know, I got asked to be on the board of governors, which I did. I did a 4-year stint on the board of governors and worked with Hazel McCallion to bring the business school to Mississauga, which was a passion for me because in my career, I'd always felt that even though I went on to do my MBA at U of T, I always felt that in my career at Bausch & Lomb that sometimes college students didn't get the respect they deserved versus some of the university grads. And it was something I felt really strongly about giving Sheridan its own business school identity. And I think it's been amazing. They've done a great job with it.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, as a business student at Sheridan, thank you so much. And I think it really helps us kind of see it in our programs as well. The opportunities being available and everything that with your kind donation, everything that's been put together. But yeah, thank you so much. And honestly,
it's important to have that identity and unique. Historically, when you said Sheridan, people thought of the animation school, which is world class. It's the Harvard of business of animation, if you will. So I thought it was really important to have its own identity. So I'm glad you're happy with that.
Yeah, no, of course. I love how even in your introduction, you mentioned your family. I feel like when we're introducing ourselves, what do you do? It's not always just about career. It's, it can be family that really drives us to, the things that we want to do within our careers or the things volunteering that we want to be part of. So I just wanted to say, thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's the motivation for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know you definitely touched on an overview of your career story, which I'm pretty sure is always great to hear from someone like yourself. But if we kind of go a bit more into your career path from graduation up until now, what would you say, or could you recognize any pivotal or unexpected moments that set your career in motion?
Yeah, I mean, back in my corporate America days, it was pretty, B&L was a very staid type of company. It was, in the ophthalmic pharmaceutical area, it was in contact lens. So it was a very interesting environment for someone who had a bit of an entrepreneurial bent to them. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to be in what they called their sports optics division, which was, rifle scopes, telescopes, binoculars, Ray-Ban sunglasses, all those things. So it was a little more artsy. It was a little more fun. But back then, Ray-Bans were only sold in optical stores. They didn't consider them a fashion product. So one of the pivotal things that I think set my career off was I convinced them to sell Ray-Ban sunglasses at the department store level. And they were like, oh, the opticians will be upset. The ophthalmologists will be upset because they pair it with lenses, because if you wear contact lenses, you're more prone to glare and light and sensitivity. So they tried to position it as almost like a medical device, which I said, who cares? Tom Cruise wears it in Top Gun. And so we created a kiosk at the Eaton Center at the time. You're too young to remember Eaton's, aren't you?
No, I remember Eaton Center. I know what that is.
Kmart, Eaton's, they're all gone now. But anyway,
Yeah.
it wasn't a Kmart, it was Eaton's and the Bay and Simpsons. Back then, they were sort of high-end department stores.
Mm-hmm.
And we created a kiosk, and in each showcase, it was like an octagon. In each showcase was like 100 of the same pair of sunglasses, and above that was the movie star wearing them. And it was so Tom Cruise with Risky Business wearing Wayfarers, wearing Top Gun glasses, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator wearing Ballaramas, and I called it Idolize, IDOLEYES, and it just took off. And it was pretty soon throughout all the major cities and all the major department stores. So I got recognized for that and got a lot more responsibility and accountability, and then moved up through the organization because of, I guess, my ability to strategic plan and look at, the trends and implications of the industries we were in. And years, a couple years later, Sunglass Hut was born. So I like to think that, that was an eye opener for that industry to go beyond just doing Ray-Ban, but have all kinds of sunglasses in just a store. And the first one opened in Miami Airport back in the day because the cruise ships used to come in there. Mm-hmm. So I like to think I was a bit of a pioneer in that regard. So that was an early version. And then on the Virox side, 24 years ago, call it, being prescient, whatever, but, nobody was screaming for a new disinfectant. But, the critical assumptions, the underlying assumptions for that business model was that, and so it seems like a very simple thing to say, but it's a complicated thing to achieve, which is that one day you will have to take professional grade disinfectants out of skilled hands, trained hands, into unskilled hands, meaning you'll have to disinfect everything. And if you said that 24 years ago, people would say, what the hell are you talking about? But, literally 5 years later, 6 years later, we're disinfecting handrails and elevator buttons at the First Canadian Place and GO trains. And it had to be everywhere. And you can't use toxic disinfectants that hospitals use because you have to wear goggles and gloves and all that stuff. So although our product was expensive relative to those legacy chemistries, we found our niche and found our way. Now we're in over 70 countries with this technology. And we have a new technology coming out next year. So it's going through the registration process. And it's based on another natural ingredient called citric, which is, citric acid is like when you squeeze a lemon or an orange. Mm-hmm. So it'll have that natural ingredient in it as an active, as opposed to peroxide. So we'll have both.
Wow. That's amazing. And
you got to picture Virox is almost like Tesla, if you will. So you got a rivalry of everyone competing for market share, selling cars, and then Tesla comes in as a fundamentally new entrant, saying you don't need gas, we're electric, right? So it's not a substitute. Substitutes are things like take the bus or take an Uber. Mm-hmm. But Tesla dropping into that rivalry really messes things up, right? And that's what we do. So you had all these companies competing with bleach and phenolics and quaternary ammoniums, all these weird chemicals. And then this peroxide thing drops in and they're like, why would you do that? We're all swimming in the pool, minding our own business, and you do a cannonball. Like, why would you do that? So, and that's what Tesla did, right? Yeah. And so that's a game changer for our industry. Is, we're certainly not the automotive industry, but there's a heck of a lot of disinfectants being used out there.
Mm-hmm, for sure, man. That just all sounds like an amazing journey, and you definitely have that mindset of what can we do, what can we improve, and I think that is such a great mindset to have, especially if we think of like leadership skills of just always looking, how can we improve? How can we do better? So
absolutely. Well, we run, the important thing about Virox here, we call it the Virox MBA. It's called the road trip, actually, because I like to analogize it to something that people can understand. So every single person in this company, in this building, aside from manufacturing, of course, participates in our planning. And we teach them, so there's 6 steps to it, and we teach them, we have training videos, we have facilitating sessions, and everyone participates. And one simple example is we have a section called Trends and Implications. What are the trends you see and what are the implications of that? So a very simple thing during this pandemic would be 2 years ago to say, okay, what's the trend? Oh, the trend is going to be, they're going to close malls and close stores, and there's going to be lockdowns rotating. What's the implication of that? Well, businesses will have to move online, and then you saw Shopify go crazy. I mean, it wasn't that obtuse to say that's probably going to be the implication of that trend of closing malls, and Shopify stock tripled. So,
Yeah.
When you take a look at those type of assessments in our industry, or even on a broader scope, it can really open your eyes to opportunities. It's a very useful exercise. But anyway, like I said, it's a six-step process that we run, and it's really cool because it teaches, whether you're a scientist and whether you're an accountant, whether you're a business person, doesn't matter. You're part of this road trip, and everybody can understand that, we're all getting in this car, we're driving to Florida. It's going to take so many days, cost so much money. What are the things that could happen along the way? What do we have to check? The tire pressure, the oil, like it's all that stuff, but it's business related, and they get it. And it's cool that everybody can be part of it.
Yeah,
It's
of
important.
course.
It's important to be part of the education process.
Definitely.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, of course. Go ahead, Zachariah.
Yeah, you were going on a bit of a chain. I didn't want to interrupt, but what would you say the relation between a organization's structure and its operations?
I'm not sure I'm following you. What is the relationship between the structure and the operation?
Yeah, in terms of, let's say when you're designing an organization.
Right.
This is more like theoretical, not like, I don't have specific examples, but
Yeah.
when
Well, it's ironic you asked that, because I just did an hour lecture at U of T MBA school on January 9th, I think it was. And that course was called organizational structuring. And it's run by Jim Fisher, who's a renowned strategic professor there, professor emeritus, actually. And it turned into a 2-hour Q&A after. It was really, really interesting. But what they were interested in was, how do you adapt and pivot as you grow an entrepreneurial organization? And, when I started Virox, 23, 24 years ago, there were 4 or 5 of us. And then you look at people's bandwidth and capabilities and how you make the best use of their abilities as new work comes your way. You say, well, who has the ability to do this, and do they have the bandwidth to do that? And then as you get more sophisticated, you find people that are experts. For example, we've got a wonderful lady here named Lori Drodopoulos. She started out with us as a receptionist. Next thing you know, she's a purchasing agent for some of the materials coming in. The back then was a pilot plant. So she's done so many different jobs. Now she runs our employee experience department, which is making sure that everything in the building functions, and that we have a Virox entertainment committee and all the events. So she's grown through the organization over 24 years, doing so many different jobs. But as the company emerges, and as it gets more sophisticated, and you have the cash flows to do so, you bring in people that are experienced and academically credentialed to be able to do those roles. So I don't know if that answers your question on organizational structure versus operational, but does that kind of help you out?
Yeah. So then, would you say both it's an organization structure and operation relates more towards, for instance, its stage on like becoming a large scale organization?
Okay. Again, I don't know that I'm following you properly, but I mean, at Virox here, we have 2 very fundamentally different but related components to our business. One is commercial. So, the development and the commercial marketing of disinfectants, and the other side is purely operational, which is manufacturing. So, we're a LEED certified GMP, which means good manufacturing practices, highly credentialed facility. And so those people on the operations side, which we call operations, are accountable for manufacturing the product. And it's very different. It's a very different mindset and very different skill set that's required versus, on the commercial side. But they're absolutely intimately related on planning. But we teach them how to operate independently. For example, if the commercial side had to go to the market and have products made independently, what would that look like? But so they treat our production people, our operations people, almost as if it's an independent company. So it challenges them to be more efficient and and make products as good as possible, as cheap as possible. And then on the commercial side, their job is to sell as much as possible for as much as possible. So it's really, a cohesive team, but very different mindsets.
Then, how did you design, or how did the channels of communications grow between each of these sub companies, so that they
Well,
could like properly communicate with each other?
Well, again, as the company grew, from 8 to 10 to 12 to 15, now over 100 and something people, the key thing, I really believe in transparency and communication. And to this day, which started many years ago, to this day, every Monday, every business leader in the company has to put together a Monday update that goes company-wide. So it would be akin to reading the newspaper. So you can look at the headlines on the financial section or the sports section or whatever section you like, lifestyle, and you know exactly what's going on. So everybody in this company would get an update, including from me and from my leadership team, that speaks very specifically to the priorities of that team that were achieved prior week and what's going to be achieved this week. And it's not a long diatribe of stuff. It's basically, some essential elements of things that occurred last week that are relevant, and things that are going to occur this week that are relevant. And then you see the interaction happen. So everything from finance to the science side to the commercial team side, all the business units. So there's probably about 7 updates that go out every Monday, and you can read them all. You can read 1 or 2 of them. You can pull the sports section out if that's what you're interested in. You can look at the headlines. You can do whatever you want. You cannot read any of them, and that's on you. So it's about being personally accountable. And if you really want to know what's going on and read the updates, which will probably take you, I'm going to say, 30 minutes of your day, to understand intimately how the company's operating, and transparently how the company's doing, from finance to science to everything. It's pretty cool. And those that are really engaged, I think they benefit more. Those that want to be somewhat engaged, that's their call, but it's there for them. And so, again, transparency, I think, is a really important thing.
All right. Thank you, Zachariah, for the question. And I know, Randy, we were also talking, we had brought up a little bit about the pandemic as well. And, students here, of course, we also had to do a shift, same with like your company. But with that, a lot of students here also had to shift to online learning. And it definitely was a challenge. I mean, myself, I definitely saw it a challenge, and I think I still experience some challenges, but we're always doing our best to, adapt and figure out what works for us. But I thought I'd ask, how do you tackle challenge and adversity in your life, and any advice that you would have for students?
Well, I've got a saying, and it's not my own. It's one that I adopted that I really believe in, and I say it to my kids all the time: is, life's 5% what happens, 95% how you deal with what happens. Mm-hmm. Because you can't change the 5%. So getting your Sheridan degree is 95% of your focus, and then you get the degree, and then it becomes 5%. Because now, what are you going to do about it? You're going to sit at home, wait for the phone to ring, or are you going to take it into your own hands? So it's cyclical in my view, and so I always think that you need to sit there and assess and say, okay, this is what happened, and can't change what happened. What am I going to deal about, or how am I going to deal with what happened? And I think that's really important in people to have that perspective, because you can't look backwards, and woulda, shoulda, coulda are really hard words to swallow sometimes. But but that's how I tend to look at adversity. And we do one of the sessions I told you about earlier. One of the 6 steps is looking at risk mitigation, and it's a bit of an interesting term, but it's called we'd be screwed if. And that's the session. That's what it's called.
Yes.
What would really ruin your day in the science side and the finance side? And we look at all those different things. We rank them. We list them in terms of probability and devastation level. Can you mitigate it? What can you do? And too many people, I think, they look at, they're too positive. They look at the grass is green and the sky is blue and everything's going to be great. And if I just work hard and try hard and do the right thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's more creative to look at the things that would make you miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the things that would make you miserable and try to avoid them, and I'll give you an example I just told you about. One of the things that would have made us miserable was having to move internationally, because my wife's parents were here and our family was here and we wanted to be here. And so I would have made more money. I would have gotten more experience, and then we'd be somewhere in the world. But this wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
All these people wouldn't know each other. So, it became the 5% and then the 95%. The 5% was me saying, I'm leaving B&L. But the 95% became, now what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like I have, I know you said it's not your quote, so I feel like I've heard this quote before, and it just really goes to show how much the things that really happen to us in our life comes down to like our decisions, what we decide to do
absolutely.
with that.
I've actually I'm going on Saturday to get another one. I can't believe it. My daughters, my sons they like tattoos, so I'm going to get another one. And so they tell me they don't know whether to look at me or read me, because mine are just sayings. They have pictures and stuff. But I've got one here that says, it's John Lennon, which says, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans, which is so true, because we live in such a how much is it per month world. It's like you defer things, you put things off, and next thing you know, you go, oh my God, I've been at Starbucks for 8 months and I just graduated, but I have my cell phone bill, and I have, sometimes you need to you need to say, I'm making that change. I'm going to do it. Yep. It's going to be painful. I might have to, look at me. When I started my company, I was 36 years old. You think you're going to live forever. And I had my house paid for, and I had a line of credit that was $300,000 that was unutilized. And I had RSPs. 4 years later, I had a $300,000 line of credit at $308,000. I had a mortgaged house, and I had no RSPs. And so, you wake up at 40 years old and go, what the hell was I thinking? But I really believed in what I was doing. But that's not an easy thing to do, and so you just have to sometimes, believe in yourself and make those decisions and go with it, because it's too easy to just stay where you are and do what you're doing and get what you're getting.
Yeah, it's kind of like trying to push ourselves out of that comfortable space. I guess, to really see our potential and really go and achieve the things that we really want to see ourselves achieving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Love that. So there was a question that came up here. So just a reminder for those maybe who have just joined us, we're just doing this very organic conversation here with Randy Pilon. If you are interested and would like to join us on video, you're more than welcome to, and you can ask Randy a question yourself. If not, you're open to use the chat as well. So there was a question that came up here in the chat from Adichie. It says, I was wondering how Virox has coped with the competition in the disinfectants industry when it was overturned with the new formula presented by Virox. Was there aggression or any issues at retail stores, etc.? Was there backlash?
Yeah, well, just first of all, we don't sell to consumers, so there's no retail implications there. But basically, as I said earlier, every business that operates is in what's called a competitive rivalry. So you've got, picture this bubble and all these people in there fighting for a share of that market, and they're saying, my product's different. So you get three core strategies. You got differentiation, which means I have something unique, which is what we are. You've got something that's cost-based, means I have the lowest price. So differentiation versus cost, you say, okay, differentiation is Holt Renfrew, cost is Walmart, right? I got generic products, everybody can get them pretty much everywhere, but I'm the best price and I'm really efficient. And then there's customer intimacy. So there's three models. Customer intimacy is, I don't have the best price, I don't have something unique, but man, am I going to treat you special? Like, I'm really going to treat you good. The insurance industry, bankers, they try to, schmooze you with, a nice environment, or tell you you're richer than you think, all that sort of stuff. And I get that. So we blended customer intimacy and differentiation together. So when we entered the marketplace, this rivalry, if you will, affecting that rivalry are from the top down is, new entrants, people coming in, like I told you, Tesla.
Mhm.
From the bottom up are substitutes. What are the substitutes for disinfecting? Oh, well, you can use ultraviolet light. You can, all these alternatives, if you will, but they're not, they're not really competing with us. And then there's the power of suppliers. So, are the inputs generic? So we're just bringing in chemicals into this rivalry, packaging them up and selling them. So it's not that big a deal, but the power of consumers on this side is very powerful in our sector, because you're dealing with professional grade products. So from dental clinics to hospitals, they have a lot of say on what gets used and how it gets used, because of occupational health and safety, efficacy of the product. What does it kill? How quickly does it kill, etc. And then down, this is basically a model called Porter's 5 Forces from Harvard School, Michael Porter. And it's used still to this day. Now there's a sixth element, so it'd be 5 forces. Now there's a sixth element that came out about 8-9 years ago called complements, which is, how can you affect that rivalry just by complementing it? So an example would be, you get the cell phone business here, and everyone's jockeying for position, iPhone, Samsung, etc. And then all of a sudden, the best ever, earphones come out, but they're only compatible with iPhone. Mm-hmm. So if you want those earphones, even though earphones have nothing to do with this rivalry, they're not going to make that bigger. They make iPhone shift because, well, I better switch from Samsung to iPhone because I want those earphones. See what I mean? So mm-hmm. it impacts that rivalry. So with us, so getting back full circle, with us, it's basically dropping into this legacy chemistry rivalry where everyone had the same stuff and we were fundamentally new and different. So we had to prove the ultimate business question. The ultimate business question. I don't care what you're doing, where you are, or what business you're in, is you need to be able to answer, so what? In fact, this is the card I give people here at Virox and people I meet that are pitching business ideas. And if it's not fully baked, they get this card.
Oh, okay.
I love that. We all need a set of those.
Yeah. And so they get a so what card, and some people go, well, that's harsh, but like, if you can't answer so what in a clear, compelling, and memorable way. Those are the 3 standards I give them. Clear, compelling, and memorable way. It's not fully baked. Then it's not, something's missing. So with Virox, we had to have a very, very clear, compelling, and memorable message as to who cares. What do you mean a new disinfectant? So what? And that was really, really the pivotal point. Was, how do you have that messaging that's gonna get you noticed and create. There's 3 horizons, right? There's awareness, trial, acceptance. So awareness is, you answer so what. Trial is people say, you know what, I'm going to try that. Acceptance is they keep buying it or tell someone else. So that whole awareness phase, if you fail in any of those areas, so you get great awareness and people believe in your so what story, and then they go to trial and they can't get the product, or it fails, or it doesn't do what the promise was, you don't move to acceptance. So acceptance is where you want to be. And so that takes time. So with us in our space, I mean, Sick Kids Hospital isn't going to try a new disinfectant just because I say it's great. So we had to build tons of science behind it with arm's length scientists that were testing the product, doing peer-reviewed publications, so we could go to infection preventionists and say, look at these. It's like what would be something that everybody would understand, like the New England Journal of Medicine. In our space, it's the American Journal of Infection Control. Look at this paper that just got published that says, peer-reviewed paper that says this technology works. Well, that's a checkpoint. And so, what are those things you're doing on the awareness side that help people get over the so what hump as you enter a new rivalry? And it can take time. It can be expensive, but it also can be sustainable and enduring if it's done right.
Mm-hmm. Of course. And I love that. Like, I mean, yeah, it does sound harsh when you ask them that so what, right? But I feel like it's so simple, it's easy to remember, and it really is so clear and to help someone, whether they're trying to start a new product, a new business, or something new they're trying to work on, it's really
Right.
remembering that
Yeah.
so what, right? Like, what are we going to get from this? What is this going to prove, or what are we going to succeed with it? So,
Right. Some people here, you'll walk around our building, you'll see the little "so what" thing stuck to their screen or on their desks as a reminder when they're doing their Monday update, and they're telling you about something. What is the "so what"? Like, what's the "who cares"?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I was actually even thinking, I'm like, maybe if someone that's listening right now, they're like, yeah, like sometimes it's a simple question as asking yourself, so what, right? Grab a
Mhm.
sticky note right now and just post that like on your computer, post it on your wall somewhere. I just wrote it down for now, but it really is that like great reminder
Yeah.
to help
Well,
you
I will
check in.
scan you a card after this.
I would love to have that card. It's just nice, big, and bolded.
There
That's
you go.
amazing. I think if we kind of keep going now too with I guess like the topic of like leadership,
Yeah.
I think a question here would be great to kind of get some of the students listening to think about as well. What advice would you give students who may not be interested in formal leadership positions,
Yeah.
but maybe they're interested in developing like their personal strengths, values, capabilities as a leader?
Yeah, no, that's very important. It's really important to have it's kind of one of the things I worry about, to be honest with
Mm,
you, with the work from home model. Because I'm worried that this work from home model with Zoom and Teams and all that stuff, I think it's efficient, and I think it can be very, very nice for your lifestyle and all that stuff. But I wonder if those leaders are going to emerge in the next 2-3 years. Like, how do you get noticed by your peers on
mm,
Zoom? How do you get noticed as the person who will take charge in a room of 10 people working on a problem? It's like that person in the dressing room at the second period of the game when you're down 3 goals, and who's that person that rallies the troops? And it's going to be a different thing. And
yeah.
I'm not saying that leaders won't emerge. I'm just saying it's going to be interesting how they do. And I think it's going to be a challenge, but nonetheless, not everybody wants to, be Wayne Gretzky, because then, who sits on the bench and who's on the third line, and those lines are useful. And it doesn't mean everybody has to be a leader, but everybody, I think, has to create their own brand and value. And I have a very simple but potentially harsh way of asking about things like that. Like, I will randomly ask one of my leaders, one of my managers, I'll say, I saw Sherry today, and I haven't seen her in a couple of weeks. And tell me something about Sherry. I mean, if it wasn't for Sherry, we wouldn't know what. Fill it in the blank 3 times. And if they just stare at me, I'm like, what are we doing? What's Sherry doing? Is there value there? Are we really motivating her? Are we making the best use of Sherry? It's a simple question to ask, but like, if you can't look in the mirror and answer that question to yourself, say, if someone stopped me in the street, and I work at pickup place, IBM, and they said, so what do you feel you accomplished in the last, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't know what. And you look in the mirror and go, I don't know. That's how you're being viewed. And so you need to reflect and self-evaluate and be introspective. And if you really want to be not necessarily a leader, but just be noticed and be valued and have your own brand. And when I say the "we'd be screwed if" thing, we have a human resource version. Like, we'd be screwed if Steve left. Right? That's pretty powerful. Steve may not be a leader. He might be the best lab technician we have. Who knows? But we also have, the human resource version of who's valuable. So you want to be on that list, but you need to be honest with yourself and self-evaluate too, and be able to answer that question yourself, and be able to tell somebody, be able to tell your supervisor or your peers why you're important and why you're valuable.
I feel like, as a student, we can relate, when it comes to group work. I had a course where it was, we had to really take time and process and be mindful of who we were selecting to be
Yeah.
in our group. We didn't want just anyone, like you wanted to all have the same values. So we filled in a chart that said, I like to hand in my work early. I like to expect above expectations for my marks. And
Yeah.
I think that all comes down to,
Yeah.
recognizing the value that you can bring to others. And I love your whole note too on self-reflection, which I also think is really important. Like, what am I doing today that I can do better from like what I was yesterday?
Yeah. But you know, and you bring up a very good point, because, you know, if you're looking at, you know, as your career as a student, you know, you look for those marks, that report card, that validation.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you move to the corporate world, and it's performance reviews. It's what your peers think of you. It's what your boss thinks of you. And you're not going to get to work with, you're not going to get to pick who you work with.
Yep.
You know, you're going to have honest contention. We have a whole video on honest contention here, on how to manage conflict, because you need honest contention, in my view, to build companies, to build relationships. Imagine, you know, a married couple who always agreed with each other, even though they're, you know, then you're going to end up with just equally unhappy people. Like, it doesn't work. You need some people to be the devil's advocate, to be that person that's going to, you know, be a fly in the ointment sometimes, to create that dialogue so that you really drill down and get to the issues, and then have consensus somehow. So, yeah, so you know, moving from being a student to then, you know, moving into your professional career, you know, I think it's really important to reflect on all that sort of stuff.
Of course, yeah, and I love for you to be able to point that out. And we've got a DT here also agreeing. You know, if we don't have a differentiation factor, you don't really know the value you bring.
Right on. Yeah.
I think that definitely makes sense. That's why usually group work, it's like, or when you're working in teams, there's always different people with different skills, because you're, as one person, we're not going to know everything. And sometimes someone else can bring in new ideas that we never probably would have thought of on our own.
Yeah. But there's a real skill, and there's a real gift, I think, to, which is something, if I could brag about myself, that I have, is finding people that are good at what you're not good at. And that's how I built this, was finding people. I know I need that skill set. I know I need that type of person. That's not me, but I know that I can share my vision, and they'll buy into it, and they'll get it, and they'll be instrumental. You know, you need a left wing, a right wing, a defense, and a goalie. Not everybody can be a goalie. You can't find people that are group thinking just like you. But I've seen in my career so many startup companies, entrepreneurs, that just want to play with their own train set too much and don't want other people involved. They hire them, but they don't let them play with the train set. And these people get bored and leave. And then the company dies, or it doesn't thrive. And you know, the plane doesn't take off. They keep building more runway instead of having a plane that takes off. And they raise more money, and the runway's longer. And then it's called founder syndrome, where you just think you know it all. But it's really important to understand what you don't know, and find the people that can really support you and bring that along. And pretty soon you've got like just an unbelievable synergy that goes on with your team. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. And I think that's great. Delvine here also has a question that goes into what we're just talking about. So you mentioned the element of motivating those we work with us. So as there are different things that motivate others, what strategies do you utilize to motivate the leaders working with you?
Well, interestingly enough, we have there's a couple of things that motivate people, I think. You know, one is, you know, just your own self worth within the organization, the plan, the accountability you have, the responsibilities you have. And then there's of course, you know, monetary motivation. You know, so we have different bonus structures and plans for different people in the organization, where they can increase their income based on achieving predetermined objectives and milestones. So there's that. And then there's of course the you know, the personal side, where you know, people, I think, have to understand what path they have in an organization. If you achieve certain things, this is the kind of path that you can follow. I really believe that, you know, everybody should be poachable. In other words, I mean, if somebody else doesn't try to steal you, why the hell would I want you? So, you know,
Okay.
I really, you know, people tell me, oh, I got a recruiter called me, I got this. I go, well, that's awesome. You know, if you stay, it's a win. If you leave, we helped you with a new path. But like, if nobody's trying to poach you, why? And we have people here at Virox that they're constantly getting approached, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not threatened by that at all.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good leader, Randy. Like you wanting your colleagues to succeed somewhere else, right? Like that's
Well, truth be told, we had one scientist here that two actually, both PhDs. The first one wanted to move back to the United States. I actually helped him get a job in the industry. The second one met a beautiful young lady in Washington when we were at some patent meetings, and they basically, she was a doctor, and so her credentials couldn't come here, so he had to go there. And I let him do commuting for almost 2 years until they found basically a home, and they wanted to start a family. And I helped him negotiate his job at Johnson & Johnson. And today we speak every week. We're still very, very close.
Wow.
But I'm not, like, he was emotional about leaving. And I'm saying that, this is your life. This is your path. Just like I chose not to go internationally. You're choosing this, and don't feel bad. Feel good that you deserve my support in helping you move on. And now, as a result of that, actually the guy was from Sheridan Future Forum. He runs our science group now, and he just got his PhD. Wow. And we supported him through that. But the first guy I was telling you about that was with us 10 years, he got his PhD at Guelph, and Waterloo, I'm sorry. And I'm in the front row. He was a guy from Iran. He was just a wonderful guy, Navid Omitbakhsh. And I was in the front row like his older brother, being there right for him. So I think that's a cool thing, And some people circle back. There's a young lady, Mel Quito. She was Melissa Rempel. I was a part of a board meeting at Sheridan College where you had that. It was like a shoe game where you have to act like you're running a company. And so they brought people in from industry to be board members, and it was really fun. It was good. And she just stood out to me, and I gave my business card to the professor. I said, if that girl's looking for a job when she graduates, give her this card. And she joined us. And she was with us many years and went off to have a family, and she's back. And she started with us about 5 months ago. Wow. And she's marvelous. So I love that. I love those stories, those circle back stories. It's cool.
I love hearing this because it's like, yes, you definitely want your company to succeed, and you're trying to surround yourself with the best people that can help your company grow. But you're definitely showing this vision with everyone that you work with, you share. And you're really prioritizing relationships because, you want them to stay with you, most likely. But I love that you want to see growth in them as well. And I think, like, as a leader, even as a student leader myself, it's wanting to see growth in other people, whether that continues to work with you under your company or whether that leads them, like you said, to other opportunities that can suit their lifestyle. So,
and you have to be very transparent about the flip side of that too.
Yeah.
If someone's inefficient or unhappy, I'd rather have an empty seat than a miserable person. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, I would rather, I'll pay you to quit. I sent an email around 2 years ago or something. It was like that, and I said, hey, if anybody wants to leave right now, I'll give you 3 months pay. It was something like that. I'll pay you to quit. And HR came in, poor Amber. Oh my God. She's from Sheridan. She comes in just shaking her head going, really? And I go, yeah, you know what? There were no takers, but like.
Yeah, you don't want that negative energy, right?
Yes.
Yeah, poor Amber comes in here every once in a while and just says, have you got a minute? And I'm like, are you going to talk about that thing I just talked about? She goes, yeah. I go, I don't have a minute.
Maybe it was for something else.
Yeah, you're not going to change my mind. Yes, because I believe in just being forthright. Yeah. And maybe it's not always politically correct, but you know where you stand, and it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even Adichie here, they're saying that it's such a refreshing view of how business relationships should be or could be. So yeah, it's definitely a perspective, I guess, maybe some of us don't hear as often. So thank you for sharing that. And there was another question here from the chat.
Sure.
Do you think entrepreneurs and leaders should aspire to know everything, even if they specialize in a few things?
Well, yeah, I mean, that circles back to
Mhm.
almost what I just answered, which is finding the people that are good at things you're not good at. So I don't pretend to be an expert in everything, but when you get to my level, you need to know enough to be dangerous in just about everything, and so I've been in negotiations where it's been me, and you've got a CEO, a chief science officer, a chief financial officer, a marketing officer. You got like 5 people in there you're negotiating, and they're all areas of expertise, and I'm Virox. And so, have you ever seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
The newer version or the older one? Well,
Both.
yes, I've seen both. I've
Yeah.
sin both.
Well, it's kind of like that, right? Because
Yeah.
and I've told people here, like I said, I just turned 60, and I'm like, I put up a slide that said, "I can't run it forever, Charlie. No, do I want to?" Remember Willy Wonka at the end?
Yes.
And they're all like, "Oh my God, who's going to come up with an everlasting gobstopper?" So but I've got such a strong team that I told them my goal is to be irrelevant, is to have you people be able to act as a unit and get stuff done, and they're really, really good at it. So I've got an executive leadership team of 6 people that all have varying degrees of expertise, but then you still need that one person that's going to pull it all and tie it in a bow. And we do that through our planning process, where we have very, very specific strategic imperatives, corporate imperatives, 8 of them, I think. And they're very, very succinct on what we need to accomplish. And then everyone else's plan dovetails into that. So if you set that tone at the top, people should be able to rise to that challenge and have their own areas of expertise and deliver the overall vision of the company. So that's how we do it.
Love that. And it seems to be that like what we're learning in some of our business classes is everything that you're saying, because that's what Delvine just shared, that that's just something they're always talking about in her HR class, that it's focus. Yeah, it's the focus on the growth, the leaders around us to further step into a new role. So
yeah, understand that. But it's really funny, because when I put that slide up, the leadership team net of me, they went away and they did a job description called Charlie.
Oh, okay.
That's creative. Like they're saying,
that
like
is
if we had
creative.
to go out and find Willy Wonka's replacement and call him Charlie, what would that look like? And the top of the job description was called Charlie. It was really cool. It was an amazing exercise that they did.
And it already goes to show.
It was eye-opening for them too, to understand the diversity of skill sets that you would need and what have you. And it's not always, academic credentials. It's experiential. It's motivational. How do you lead people? How do you get people to understand your vision and believe in it and understand it, and the so what?
Of course. Yes. That's so great. Okay. So we're just approaching time. We've got like about 5 minutes. I think maybe one last thing I definitely want to ask here is probably about mentoring. So informal and formal mentoring relationships help young people in all areas of life, right? So emotional, social, academic, and employment. Any tips on how students here can find a good mentor, and what advice would you have to those who find the process of finding a mentor intimidating and scary?
It's such a it's a good question. It's such a generic approach to say, I want to find a mentor. I get asked that a lot. But then, it's really important to understand what you're trying to get out of it. I find a lot of people that ask you to be a mentor to them, and you say, well, what are you trying to accomplish? What is it exactly that you're looking for? And they go, well, I don't know. I was just told I should have one. I think you have to have your own roadmap. We call it a road trip here at Virox, but when it's your the personal part of it is called your roadmap. Like, what is yours, and where do you expect to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, and 5? And I think it's really important to go through that process and look at where your deficiencies are and find a mentor that can help you with those deficiencies. not someone that's just going to be a cheerleader in things you're already good at, but someone that's going to help you in the things that you think you might struggle with. And, every business life is based on critical assumptions. So what does that mean? A critical assumption. We have a whole session on critical assumptions that I part of our road trip. But if one of your critical assumptions was that you weren't going to live to be 35 years old, you'd have a very different life plan.
Mm-hmm.
So critical assumptions in your own personal journey are very important. What are the things that you think? I assume that I will travel internationally. I want to live internet. What are those assumptions that you think drive your life plan? And again, where you think you might struggle on the deficient side, look for someone who has that skill set. Look for someone who has that experiential success that could guide you. And it might not be, a one-on-one personal thing. It might be someone online. It might be someone that does podcasts. And it might be some, ebook that you buy, whatever. I got inspired by a couple of books. One was called Discipline of Market Leaders. The other one was called Boom Bust Echo by Dr. David Foote back in the day. Those type of things just opened my eyes to different things I should think about as I built this company. So mentors don't always have to be, some person from industry or some teacher that you knew or whatever. I think you need to look at your own plan and look at where you think you need help and get mentored in that.
That's a great way to put that. And yeah, I think sometimes some students may get stuck on, I was told to have a mentor, but it's more, again, back to the whole reflection of figuring out what we need for ourselves, for sure.
Can you excuse me for 2 seconds? Sorry.
Yeah, of course. No worries.
Hello?
This is a great conversation, Sherry.
This is. We have
Okay.
2 more questions in the chat.
Sorry, my car got stolen out of our parking lot here yesterday, so that was the police. But I'll call them back later.
Oh, okay. Well, we're
Lucky me, huh?
oh man.
Right out of the parking lot. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Okay.
unfortunate.
Well, yeah, we're wrapping up soon, so that way you can definitely figure out what happened to your car there. Sorry for that.
This is the police following up. This happened on Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my. So they haven't. Okay. Well, that's. Anyways.
If you see a blue Trackhawk Jeep driving around, it's mine.
Noted. Everyone that's listening, keep your eye up.
Well, thank you so much, Randy, for your time. There were a few more questions there that we unfortunately weren't able to get to, but I think this whole conversation was really great. I hope everyone that is here with us has been able to take something away. Maybe you wrote down "so what" already on a sticky note and it's around on your desk, or maybe you're really trying to figure out, what values you bring to a group, to a company, whatever it is you feel you were inspired from Randy today. Thank you so much. I think there was a lot of great information here shared with us.
Yeah. And I think what you're doing with this program is awesome. I think anyone that's taking advantage of this is smart. Good for you.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I've always loved our leadership conferences. Like we host 2 a year, and I've been attending them ever since I found out, what is this, 2 years ago now? So it's always good. You never know what you're going to get from moments like this, from questions you ask, questions other people ask. Yeah. Really always great opportunities.
Awesome.
Thank you, Randy. So we are going to have a break. We are hosting another RBC music performance, and it will be by R&B singer Silo. They will be on the main stage. So Silo's work has received global recognition, charting virally on both Spotify and Apple Music. Additionally, his songwriting skills have placed him in studios amongst Grammy-winning nominated singers in Los Angeles, New York, London, UK. Wow, that sounds amazing. I think I'm going to go check that out myself right now.
Me
so
too.
If you haven't already, we also have the networking session going on. Or, again, important for headshots, take advantage of the LinkedIn headshot station before the end of the day. We'll see you back on the main stage at 2 p.m., everyone, for our LinkedIn webinar.
Awesome. Go enjoy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
job, Sherry. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done. Yay. All right. Okay, I'll see you back on. Are you going back to the stage after this, Sherry? Or are you done now?
I think I'm done. I don't know. Do you need me for anything else?
No. Go enjoy the rest of the
Okay.
conference.
All right. Sounds good. I will
Okay,
go enjoy it with everyone. Bye.
Okay, bye.